Welcome to episode 10, PuckHeads Insider Report. My name is Ed Combs here in South Florida. My co-host, Peter South in Windsor, Ontario. If you have any questions on your favorite team, please send them off to us, puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. You can check us out on Facebook page, PuckHeads Insider Report. Let us know what you think. If you like the show, please hit like, please subscribe, please click on the bell button. We'd love to get as many listeners as we can enjoying this great game. With so much to get to today, Peter, let's dive in. First, how are things up in the Great White North, my friend?
Well, it's pretty sad now after the loss by Team Canada tonight, but generally it's pretty good.
Well, things have been pretty good down here. A little chilly lately, but I have the headlines for all the hockey newspapers across the country in Canada, especially in the United States, but we can put in Spencer and then parentheses, Knight saves the day. and we did our picks. So before we start jumping into everything, let's see here. We were both mistaken on the bronze medal, but I will give it to you as coming closer. Russia lost to Finland, Sweden. I still can't believe Sweden fell apart to Finland. That just blew me away. However, I picked the U.S. to win gold, Canada to win silver, and I'm sorry, is that how that fell in? I'm just making sure I'm correct.
Sure, Ed, it's your world. Let's just go with it.
You know damn good and well you'd be giving it to me so hard right now in Canada.
Well, yeah, as we talked about before, Ed, you know I'm a big supporter of the U.S. development program. And tonight was a major reason why they won this game is the familiarity with the players with each other, able to come together under a duress situation, and they pulled it out.
All right, well, before we go diving into tonight's two games, let's dive into last night's. One of the reasons our show is not going to be starting on Wednesday, it'll be starting on Thursday, is we got a lot of hockey to get to. So let's start off with Monday night's games between Canada and Russia. I've never seen anything like Askarov, the goalie in Russia. Seriously, what is he think he's Hasek? I mean, Bad doesn't even start to explain it. How many times this guy lose his stick? Did he throw it? Did he drop it? Is throwing your stick at the puck allowed in this tournament, in the World Junior Championships? Or is he dropping it just trying to grab it?
I think he was in desperation mode more than anything. He's actually quite the prospect. He was a first-round draft pick by Nashville. They're counting on him to be the future for that club. You know, going by, and we're not going to jump too far ahead, he played a heck of a game against Finland, but he is going to be the real deal. And one thing to touch on about Russia, too, is they have 7 players, which is really a high number, able to come back for next year's tournament, too, which it is pretty good and bodes well for them for next year. And he's one of them.
If you look at them in game 1, they chased Knight right out of the net in the first period. They owned Team USA. They played Canada for the winner to go to the gold medal game, and it looked like men playing boys. I mean, they didn't belong in the same ice rink, to be honest with you, and I don't get it. Igor Larionov is one of the greatest hockey minds ever. I mean, they call him the professor for crying out loud. And for whatever reason, he leaves him in there during that game last night, and he gets just destroyed. Where did you see, was Canada just that much stronger? Did Russia have a bad game? Because Canada's loaded for bear.
Well, you're right. Canada is loaded. And the thing with Russia, though, they, like I said or alluded to earlier, they are a young team and a lot younger than I even gave them credit for being. And I think what Larionov was doing, leaving him in the net, was basically giving him a life lesson. It's something the kid will learn and, grow on, hopefully for him in his career, about the humiliation and, giving up some bad goals, taking a hard loss. And it's a tough one. It was a tough one for the Russian Hockey Federation. I'm sure you saw that Slava Fetisov made a tweet basically saying there wasn't one player on the Russian team who could make Team Canada after that game, just to echo his own frustrations with what happened last night. But they're a team that will be back next year. They always have a good showing. They'll be back next year. I mean, they weren't blown out of the tournament by any means. They were in the bronze medal game. It's, a testament to a young team. So look for them to bounce back next year for sure.
Whether that statement from Fetisov is true or not, he's the minister of sports in Russia. Do you see that as straighten up, boys, or you're just awful? How do you call your team out like that in a tournament like this? And I don't want to get into a lot of this. I just want your quick opinion because we've got so much still to get to yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, very quickly, I'm sure Russia has a different culture than we do, and they're still a little old-fashioned. Over here, you'd never hear that done. It's, would be pat on the back. Good job, boys. You tried real hard. Over there, it's a kick in the pants and straighten up and do better next time.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe we need more of that here. Maybe that'll straighten up a few kids in the area, eh? Not that I'm trying to get away from that. It's just Canada was so dominant. I mean, going into the gold medal game, they hadn't allowed an even strength goal. They outscored their opponents 41-4. They were never trailing in one single game. In fact, they were tied for only 19 minutes of all the games combined. So I'm not trying to jump away from them, but there's just not a lot there because they're so dominant. But I do want to jump real quick to the U.S.-Finland game. USA came out like a house of fire, but Finland held on. They came on strong in the first period as the first period moved along. They reminded me a lot as this game wore on of the 1995 New Jersey Devils clogging up the middle so much. U.S. got really sloppy in the first before scoring. The Finns tied it up at 1, and USA outscores their opponents in second periods 13-4. Now, the USA starts trying to stretch the ice with the Finns in the second. The way they muddle things up in the middle, is that a good idea? Is that something the USA should have been doing because of the way that the Finns were doing this? What did you see as that game progressed?
Well, Finland does like to play that way. They do like to clog up the middle, and it's a way that the game is played quite a bit in Europe on the big ice surface. With that being said, though, the U.S. was able to crack through that break on one specific play on a great pass that struck Boldy loose, and he went in and scored. Or was that Boldy? I'm sorry.
Yes, it was. You're absolutely correct.
It was Boldy on that breakaway.
Yeah.
And he just caught the Finns kind of flat-footed. But like I said, they do a great job of clogging up the middle in Europe. The ice surface is so wide that they'll give you the outside, but they clog up the middle and take away the scoring opportunities.
As we moved into the third period, it was crazy with the penalties. It seemed that Finland was getting away with murder while the U.S. had a steady line to the penalty box. Now, I don't want to beat up on the refs too much. I mean, it was very one-sided for a while. The USA was shooting themselves in the foot with 3 delay of game penalties, shooting the puck into the stands. And the USA coach said before that game, we cannot put ourselves in the box by making mistakes. And that's exactly what they did. Up 3-1, what happens? The Finns come back 3-2. Next thing you know, the game is tied 3-3. Don't give up. U.S. comes back, scores, 1:16 left. Now, there was some conversations going around that the Finnish goalie is not all of that. Is he playing in Canada? Is he playing in the U.S.? Where's he playing, or is he in an elite league over there?
He's playing in Finland now, but for the last 2 years, he actually played here in Windsor with the Windsor Spitfires in the Ontario Hockey League. It's funny, last night I was talking with a friend of mine here in town who is a regular at those games, and we both kind of said that we expect him to give up a big goal because that's kind of what his career's been like when he played with Windsor, and sure enough, he did give that up.
Well, that's what he did. Approximately 1:40 seconds left, if I can find my notes. There was left in the game. 18:44, the third. USA scores to win it. Now we're all set up for tonight, Peter. You got the Finns and the Russians. In the early game, the Russians come out flying. They score first. They are all over Finland. What happened?
Well, Finland plays a very patient game, and it seemed to be the order of the day for them that it takes them to fall down by a goal or two before they start putting it together. And that was the case tonight. They went down a goal, and then they realized, okay, time to play. They start taking it up a notch. Russia just couldn't match them when they picked it up. Finland is a
what
very
happened in
dynamic
the
team.
early? They are a very dynamic team, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you look at that game, 6 minutes in, they're out shooting the Finns 5-0. They're all over them. They score a goal. Their first goal is on a power play. What is it with Finland that they can just turn a switch like that and run rampant over Russia the rest of the game?
It's something they've done the whole tournament, and it's kind of been their trademark during this tournament. They did it to Sweden. They tried to do it to the U.S., as we talked about last night. They just seem to, when they get down, they decide to pick it up a notch, whether it's happening behind the bench or in the players themselves, whatever. It's just a little fire gets lit under their butts, and away they go.
Well, it was a tie game until we got into the third, minute 13 in. Finns take a 2-1 lead, and it was all it took, basically. Do you think Larionov spoke to Askarov? Noticed his stick, I don't think, left his hands once.
No, I think it was there. And the other thing which Canada exploited a lot in night before was his glove hand. He has a right-hand catching glove, and Canada exploited it quite a bit. He has trouble hanging on to pucks when it does hit his glove, but he was much better at that tonight. And that's something, obviously the Nashville people are watching closely as well, too.
We're going to see where he ends up in Nashville. Jumping into the big game, USA-Canada. USA with a 42.9% on the power play this year. Canada 41-4 outscoring their opponents this tournament so far, not allowing an even strength goal. Now, we start out tonight's game. USA is a little sloppy. They fanned on some shots. They miffed on some passes. Both ends of the ice just did not look like they had it together. And if Canada gets a break at all, I think they run roughshod over the U.S. But 10 minutes into the first, no score. Canada out shooting them 7-4. And then bam, 13:25 into the first, USA scores first even strength goal. You got Turcotte putting the puck in the net. And from there, the USA just did everything they could to put pressure on Canada. Where do you think the biggest problem was for Canada? They really didn't ever have to dial it up against anybody in this tournament until now? Or were they so used to not having to, they didn't know where to turn it on?
Well, Canada was so used to easy exits all through the whole tournament. The U.S. put a lot of pressure on them. They went basically with a 2-1-2 type forecheck. So they took away that pass to the other defenseman and forcing the Canadian defenseman to put the puck up the wall to a forward. And then the U.S. defensemen were pinching down and breaking up plays, which was causing a lot of turnovers in the Canadian zone. And like I said, Canada hadn't experienced that this whole tournament. All their exits had been really easy to move the puck up and get into the the offensive zone. And this proved to be a big problem in the first period and quite a bit in the second period as well.
Well, in the second period, Zegras gets his 27th point in his career, making it 2-0 the U.S. He has passed Jeremy Roenick, and he's tied with another big star in USA hockey history, whose name is escaping me. I'm sorry. 10 minutes into the second, you got 17 shots for the U.S., Canada with 10. Big turnaround going through the first part of that second period with USA continuing to press. They did not score on the power play. Canada 0 for 1 on the power play, and U.S. 0 for 1 on the power play. What wasn't working for both teams? Both defenses are solid on these teams. They both got high-end talent on the front and the back. What was missing?
I think, like you said, I remember watching and thinking to myself during the second period, this is like a heavyweight fight Both teams had a little bit of pressure going on. They would continue to forecheck and pressure and get chances. Not a lot of shots, but a lot of pressure, a lot of chances. And then the tide would turn. It would go down the other end. The same thing would happen in the other end. And it was actually quite great to watch. They're two evenly matched teams. And, one of the other things I was thinking to myself is it's almost too bad. And not saying this as a Canadian, but I'm just saying it's too bad just for the fans' sake that it isn't a 2 out of 3 series, because that would have been great to watch those teams battle for a couple more games, because I'm sure it would have went to all 3 games.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've always wondered that myself on why it was always just the one game. And I mean, I get it. It's short, it's quick. And everything is one game throughout this whole thing. But that would be cool to see maybe a best of 3 for the gold medal. Is it going to be something that they're concerned about injuries maybe? Because a lot of these guys have been drafted.
Well, that's one of the things. Plus, it's getting the players back to the teams in the various leagues they play in throughout North America and Europe. Because a lot of the European teams break over the Christmas break. And they want to start the second half of their season. Even though in a normal year, the NCAA and the OHL are going, and Western Hockey League, Canadian Hockey League are going, they want their players back as soon as they can get them back.
Impressive players for Canada. We have Cousins, who was impressive. Levi, who was, forget about it, just lights out impressive. Schneider, you got honorable mentions with McMichael and Krebs. And I know he's a high talent, and I know he is going to do very well in the NHL. You and I brought this up to you, who is just, to me, unimpressive the whole tournament in Byfield. LA's first pick, second overall in this past draft. You said he's young and he's new in this tournament. But the first thing that comes to mind for me is if he is having a struggle in this tournament, what's he going to do when it comes to NHL talent?
Well, I kind of disagree with you a bit. I thought Byfield actually had a really good game tonight. He was around the puck. He was creating opportunities. He was working hard on both ends of the ice. So I am a little disagreeing with you on that. I think he is going to be a force for the future. Next season or next year, if, depending where he's playing, if the LA Kings let him go play, he will definitely be a force for Canada. But like I said, his development is great. And for such a big player, he skates so well and has such great hands. It's he is going to be a fantastic player at the NHL level. And you will see that as time goes on.
I'm not trying to say he's not a talented player by any stretch of the imagination. From what I've seen in him, I'm not trying to say that he is not a talent, because he is a hell of a talent. He's going to do very well adjusting maybe to his size. Maybe he's not grown into his size. He did do well in this tournament. He is playing hard in the tournament. I guess I over-expected more because of where he went in the draft. Number 2 overall. I really thought I would see a lot of moves, a lot of goals, a lot of assists, more than what I saw. Correct me. I mean, what am I seeing or not seeing that I should be seeing?
Byfield is a different talent. For a number 2, you'd normally expect like a number 1 to be this flashy, quick skating, dynamic type player, where Byfield's kind of an all-around player. And I think that's what made his appeal so big to the LA Kings to take him, is he does it all in all 3 zones. He backchecks hard. He plays well in his own zone. He's smart positionally and offensively. He's got great hands. He plays well for his size in tight spaces. So he does it all. He does a lot of the little things that aren't normally noticed really, really well. And he actually has a tendency to make a lot of his teammates look a lot better because of it.
You and I both know that part of being drafted by an NHL team is not just talent. It comes down to your interviews. It comes down to how mature you are at the age you are when you're drafted, 18, 19, whatever it happens to be. What you're going to be, what type of fit you're going to be in that room. What have you heard on his maturity? I like and understand what you're saying about him on both sides of the ice. on the offensive, defensive side of the pucks and being able to move the puck well. What are they saying about his maturity and how he'll look in the locker room for the Kings?
Oh, that's one thing where he's outstanding, and a lot of that is attributed to his coach in Sudbury, Corey Stillman, who actually a week ago just signed on with the Arizona Coyotes as an assistant coach. You know, the odds are in time he'll end up being the head coach in Arizona. He's great with young men, and I think that's what he's done is he turned Quinton Byfield into a complete player, a mature player, and a mature person too.
That's awesome. All right. Well, one of the reasons we keep kind of going into Quinton Byfield and the LA Kings is we're going to kind of meld right into the LA Kings. And GM Rob Blake has a plan for the Kings to get them back into contention for the Cup, Peter. They're definitely going through a path of rebuilding from within and not trying for a quick fix with free agents. Do you think the Kings are going to make big strides this year, or are they going to struggle to just be a part of the division with St. Louis, Vegas, Colorado? I mean, are they going to be challenging for anything that resembles a playoff spot in your mind?
They could be challenging for one of the last positions in the West Division. They've made some great moves. It was highlighted actually the last two games for Team USA when the game-winning goal by Arthur Kaliev. He was a second-round draft pick in 2019. And, of course, Alex Turcotte, who scored the first goal and game winner tonight, he is also a first-round draft pick from 2019. The Kings had a total of 9 players playing in this World Junior Tournament. So the future does look bright for them. They got a lot of really young players who are, going to develop with them and get them back where they want to be. And I like Rob Blake's plan. He would love, I'm sure, to see them get in the playoffs, to get all these young guys, even though they'll probably exit early, but get them in the playoffs and just get that experience, get that feel for what it's like to be there.
LA Kings are the lowest spending team in the NHL, currently just over $12 million below the salary cap. That's going to take us right to our mailbag. And this question I like because I think you can answer it better than I can because of the position you're in as a scout. Today's mailbag brings us a question from a transplanted Kings fan in a hurricane country. He's living over in Carolina. Dale is asking, coming out of the draft, who is going to be better in the early part of the season with the Rangers picking number 1 pick, Alex Lafreniere, or is it going to be the Kings pick with Quinton Byfield making as good or better a showing? He says he knows it depends on who has the most help, but he's wondering our thoughts. Do you see the Rangers giving him more help, or is Quinton Byfield going to have as much or more talent on his side of the LA Kings bottle to get him moving along?
Well, I think the plan with Lafreniere with the Rangers is they're going to throw him in the mix right away. He's going to be one of their top 6 players. They're going to go whole hog with him right off the bat. With Byfield, I think they're going to go a little slower with him. With the Canadian Hockey League, especially the OHL season still in doubt, it looks like I think Byfield will be definitely at the Kings camp after he leaves the bubble in Edmonton. I assume unless he really makes some impressive things happen in camp, he's going to start off the season on their taxi squad, which each NHL team has this year. And he'll be practicing with the team and playing with them. I don't think he'd be allowed to go play in the American Hockey League right now because of the rules the Canadian Hockey League has with the NHL and AHL. But he could stick with the NHL as a taxi squad player. And if a player or two goes down, they could put him in the lineup. But I think they're going to bring him along a lot slower than the Rangers are going to bring along Lafreniere.
You don't think he's capable of making that team straight out of the gate a number 2 overall pick? I mean, again, I'm not trying to say he's not a talent. I personally was expecting more from him. You've seen him a lot more than I have, but I still thought he would still make a starting 9 in the LA Kings organization. No, you're saying no.
No, I'm saying no. I mean, it's speculation on my part, your part, but I think the Kings are going to bring it a lot slower. I mean, I think Alex Turcotte, who also played for the Americans, he's going to be ahead of ahead of Byfield in development and would get a job as a center as before Byfield will.
Not to jump away from this, but just real quick. For example, the Wings took Raymond, 4th overall. Do you see him cracking that lineup this season?
I think they're going to bring him in. I think they're going to give him a good look. He may start, but I'm not sure what the number of games is before the entry level kicks in and all that. So they might actually just give him a 4 or 5 game, 6 game look and then send him back to Sweden to finish out the season there. Because he's European, they can send him to Grand Rapids as well. So
right, he's not American or Canadian, so you can go there. Right.
Yeah, so there's the different rules apply. I think the Wings will definitely give Raymond a good look for sure.
With jumping back to our LA Kings, I didn't want to get too far away. They're being in a current rebuilding mode. You got your core with Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty, Dustin Brown, Jeff Carter, Jonathan Quick. Average age 34 years old. Do you see Jonathan Quick going much longer with LA? Do you know, does LA got another goaltender lined up to take his place at some point, maybe in the minors? They're all going to be counted on to not only lead on the ice, but be mentors to these young players that are coming in. So who do you see stepping up the biggest for who's coming in right now? And again, real quick, is there somebody there to back up Quick or to replace him in the near future?
Well, they brought Peterson up last year from Ontario in the American Hockey League. He did a great job. He won, I think, 6 out of his 8 games he played. And it was in the second half of the year, and I was able to give Jonathan Quick a little bit of rest, which I think helped Quick's game quite a bit. So I see him sticking with the big club this year. They do have a young fellow named Matthew Velada, who has been developing in both the ECHL and AHL level. And but I see with the cap space and the way the Kings have set themselves up, that in a couple of years, they may go the free agent route and look for a top-notch goaltender who's, another club has spent the money in developing and sign him away, go that route.
Speaking of free agents, they just brought in a free agent out of Edmonton who was traded there in the trade deadline out of Detroit, Andre Athanasiou. Do you see him being a fit there? Is he being given an opportunity on a 1-year, small $1 million contract to make a fit in that room, make a fit? Who do you even see him skating with on that team?
I think they brought Athanasiou in as an opportunity to see what he can do and how he'll fit. I've had a few sources tell me that he isn't the best guy in the locker room. He has a bit of arrogance and it's just a way about him that kind of rubs a lot of his teammates the wrong way. I think that's why he made such a quick exit out of Edmonton. I think he's going to be on a pretty short lease in LA. Again, because of their salary cap situation, they have no problem waiving him and sending him down to their AHL team if he doesn't perform the way they're looking for, both on and off the ice.
Do you see that maybe was why Yzerman got him out of Detroit, because he's not going to tolerate any disruptions in his room? That's still his room.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was for sure. They had the contract issues in Detroit. And a guy like Yzerman, who is well documented that his whole career was turned around by Scotty Bowman, who got him to play just as responsibly defensively as offensively. When he comes in, he sees that even though Athanasiou had a career year in Detroit, he was still minus 45 last year before they traded him. So that doesn't bode well for most GMs in this league now. Kenny Holland knew him. He drafted him, and I guess he figured he owed him at least one more shot. He brought him into Edmonton. He just played a handful of games there, and, of course, only the 4 games they played in the playoff bubble. Yeah, I think he looked at what he had coming down as far as players and what it would cost him to re-sign him, because I think if Edmonton had have made him an offer, they would have had to make it around the $3 or $4 million mark. And LA's got him for, like you said, around $1 million.
He is on a short leash, very short. So if he gets sent down on a one-way contract, that means anybody can pick him up for free. Do you see him being picked up, or if LA says he's a problem and then nobody?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I could see him ended up back in the American Hockey League, and at the end of the year, he ends up for next year over in Europe.
Before we move on to more stuff regarding the LA Kings, which we got a lot because there's a ton of players that they have drafted and picked up that are playing in this tournament we've been discussing that just ended, we're going to jump into our I Bet You Didn't Know. Today's question is, which Kings player had 8 points in a single game? Luc Robitaille, Wayne Gretzky, Bernie Nichols, Marcel Dion. Let's do that again. Which Kings player had 8 points in a single game? Is it A, Luc Robitaille, B, Wayne Gretzky, C, Bernie Nichols, or D, Marcel Dion? We're going to get you that answer in just a few minutes, but right now we are going to continue on with LA Kings conversation. And the Kings had 9 draft picks playing in the World Junior Tournament, including this year's number 2 overall draft pick, whom we have been discussing in depth, Quentin Byfield, playing for Canada. 2019's first round, 5th overall pick, Alex Turcotte, whose dad played. Alfie, wasn't Alfie Turcotte an NHLer?
Sure
and
was.
In the tournament. And he's playing with the U.S. He played last year at the University of Wisconsin and decided to turn pro this year. 2019 first round, 22nd overall pick, Tobias Bjornfoot, who is playing for Team Sweden the past 2 World Juniors. They got a ton of talent coming out of this tournament. How far away are these guys from helping either the LA Kings NHL franchise, their AHL affiliates, getting primed and ready for NHL action and learning their trade better there?
Well, I think they're pretty close. The Kings have to be pretty excited about the U.S. victory. We'll touch on that quickly because in the Finland game that you talked about, Arthur Kaliev, who was a second-round draft pick, scored the winning goal in that game. In the gold medal game, Alex Turcotte scored the game-winning goal in that game. So the Kings have to be pretty excited about what they have coming up. They also have 2018 first-round pick Rasmus Kumpari, who played with the Kings affiliate in the Ontario Reign last year in the AHL, ready to come up. And defenseman Sean Dursey, who they got in a trade from Toronto, was a second-round selection. They got him when the Kings traded Jake Muzzin in 2019.
That was part of the Jake Muzzin deal, right?
Exactly. So they've got some great prospects. Like I said, Rob Blake is doing the right thing. He's building from through the draft, and it's they're going to be a fun team to watch over the next 2-3 years as they develop and get better.
Matthew Villalta, who's been developing in the ECHL and the AHL, where is he right now? Is he still in the ECHL? Has he moved up to the Ontario team? Where is he?
He started last year in the Ontario team, backed up a bit, and then was sent down to Fort Wayne in the ECHL, where he got a lot of starts, played really, really well, then went back up to Ontario. Pretty well took over the starting job before the season was halted. So he's developing really nicely for them. They're looking good. They've got forwards, they got defensemen, they got some goaltending all being developed. So it's looking like bright sunny days ahead for the LA Kings.
Right now, we're going to jump into our answer to our question, which LA Kings player had an 8-point game, a single game with 8 points? Is it A, Luc Robitaille? Is it B, Wayne Gretzky? Is it C, Bernie Nichols? Is it D, Marcel Dion? Peter, we know the obvious choice, but why don't you give us the right answer?
Well, I actually remember watching the game and remember Mr. Pumper Nichols doing a lot of pumping that night when he put up 8 points.
December 1st, 1988, 2 goals, 6 assists against your Toronto Maple Leafs. Bernie Nichols became one of only 13 players in NHL history to record an 8-point game. That has to be just incredible. Who's the only, I think there's only one. Is there only one player to have a 10-point game?
Darryl Sittler of my Maple Leafs.
That's kind of why I threw that in there to give you a little. That is pretty cool. That is actually really cool. Speaking of these guys, these are some pretty big names in the LA Kings organization. Luc Robitaille, highest scoring right winger in NHL history. Wayne Gretzky, the highest point getter in NHL history. Bernie Nichols, whose name speaks volumes, 8-point game right there, what we're talking about. Marcel Dion, part of the Triple Crown line. Who do you see that's going to be the next Luc Robitaille coming in out of all of these guys that they've got drafted, all these high-end picks, all these guys in the tournament? Who's the next Bernie Nichols? Who's the next Marcel Dion? Who do you see making that big step to make the LA Kings conference champions again?
Well, I think the next superstar on the LA Kings is going to be Alex Turcotte. He gave a glimpse to everybody of what he can be, and I think he's still developing to be an even better player.
I couldn't agree more. I was really hoping you were going to bring him up. That kid was flying the entire tournament. He looks good. His speed is good. His hands are good. I could not agree more. I think he's going to step up big. I don't know that he's going to step into any of those skates that we're talking about, but I see a real future for that kid. Real quick, before we wrap things up, I want to know if they don't bring Quinton Byfield straight up. I mean, number 2 draft pick. Wow. If they don't got him ready this season and they let him kind of mature a little bit more, season, if you will, a little bit more, whether it's in Europe or in the Canadian League, if that gets rocking again. When do you see him being ready for the LA Kings and not the Ontario Reign? When is he ready to step into that lineup?
I think it'll be next year for sure. A couple of their high-end centers, Kopitar and Carter, will be getting less minutes, and that'll open up more minutes for a player like Byfield. And he'll start off like a third-line center, but he can, or a second-line center, and he'll start stepping it up. And again, you've got Turcotte there too, so the torch could be passed from Kopitar and Carter to Turcotte and Byfield within the next year and a half.
We will see what happens and who can step into those skates next. Quinton Byfield, he may be a season away as Peter projected. I really like Turcotte. I really hope he is going to step up quick and be ready to roll once the season gets started. Anything else, Peter, you want to touch on about the tournament? I know you and I have gone back and forth on this whole thing. We have watched it nonstop. I have enjoyed it. Anything else you want to touch on, whether it's the Canadian team, the U.S. team, the Finns, the Russians, the Swedes? Who do you see making any big changes, and what team has got the most players coming back? You had mentioned Russia's got 5 or 6. Who's got the most that are going to come back?
Well, like I said, Russia's got 7 players coming back for next year, so they're going to be a team to watch. Another player to watch over the next couple of years in his development is from Finland, and that's Brad Lambert. He just turned 17 during the tournament, and he won't even be eligible for the NHL draft until 2022. He was already playing in the top 6 and getting top 6 minutes for Finland. He's a talent. There's no doubt about it. He is going to be probably a top 3 player in that. He's already being projected as a top 3 player in that 2022 draft. So watch for him. The last note is German phenom Tim Stützle, who was named the top forward in the tournament. Not the most valuable player, but top forward. He is already in Ottawa doing a little quarantining there, and it looks like he will make the jump as the number 3 overall pick right to the Senators and to get some ice time. He was absolutely brilliant for Germany. Even when they started the tournament with 9 forwards, he logged a ton of ice time and just kept making every shift count and making the defensemen on the teams he played accountable at all times.
I was glad you brought that up. A lot of folks may not realize that the kids that are playing in this tournament are kids. I mean, these guys are 16, 17, 18, in some cases are turning 19 during the tournament. You want to see the future of the NHL, this is the place to go to see it. These kids play their hearts out. They play their guts out. We hope you had a chance to watch it, whether you were in Canada watching it on TSN, here in the United States on the NHL Network. The games were all absolutely fantastic. I do hope you enjoyed the show. For Peter South up in Windsor, Ontario, my name is Ed Combs. Please click on the like button. Please click subscribe. If you have any questions about your favorite team, you got any comments about the show, send them off to us, puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. Once again, for Peter South in Windsor, my name is Ed Combs here in South Florida. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to talking hockey again with you next week.